Dr. Guo currently serves as the Dean of the School of General Education and Director of the Center for Whitehead Studies at Beijing Normal University, Hong Kong Baptist University, United International College. Take a breath. He holds a Ph.D. in Computer and Information Science from Kansas State University. In the past decade, his research interests have extended to whole person education, Confucianism, and process philosophy. He has co-authored influential books such as Introduction to Bayesian Networks and Introduction to Emotional Intelligence in Holistic Education, as well as Towards the Whiteheadian Century, titles that demonstrate his interdisciplinary expertise. Dr. Guo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy today because this is when your dream comes true. And thank you all for coming, gathering together, makes this occasion not only actual, but very meaningful. And also, I'm very glad Joe just mentioned the concept of wave to describe Whitehead's Harvard lecture, because I think this is also the concept I want to use to describe the development of Whitehead's thoughts. As you can see, the title of my sharing is The Rhythm and Yin-Yang of Whitehead's Speculative Adventure of Ideas. I think everyone knows this very famous passage, right, from Process and Reality. So he said, in this general position, the philosophy of organism seems to approximate more to some strains of Indian or Chinese thought than to Western Asiatic or European thought. One side makes process ultimate, the other side makes facts alternate. Today, I want to share 3 points about how we can see Whitehead's process thought from the perspective of the Book of Changes. The first one is I'm going to use one of the hexagram, the interpretation of one of the hexagram Chen, also the creative, which is also the #1 hexagram of the Book of Changes, to describe the development of Whitehead's process thoughts as the reason. And then the second point is I want to show actually Whitehead's process thoughts is full of yin-yangs. I can identify at least 9 or 10 pairs of them. So I will share this. And then last one, last but not least, is a diagram that we can use in the Book of Changes to map Whitehead's not only 8 categories of existence, but also the category of ultimacy. So now let's look at the first one. Okay, oops. The first point, the first #1 hexagram in the Book of Changes is called Qian the Creative. The interpretation to it, only 4 Chinese characters, Yuan, Heng, Li, and Zhen, which means in English, Qian represent what is great and originating, penetrating, advantageous, correct, and firm. Actually, here we can see 4 stages. You may consider this to be a wave of 4 smaller waves. I want to use the last translation by Hilary Barrett, that like it means, or maybe I combine the last 2. The first stage is begin, and then success, and then benefit and steadfastness. As you can see, there's a flow from the bottom to the top of this hexagram. So each line has its own position in the process. So let's try to use this to map the development of Whitehead's thoughts. I think we all know the development of Whitehead's thoughts can be divided into 3 periods. You may see this is a big wave, consider of smaller waves, and in each smaller wave, actually there are even smaller waves that you can identify. This is what I want to demonstrate. And it's also interesting to compare this with Whitehead's rhythm of education, right? Or rhythm of learning. There are 3 stages: the romance, the precision, and the generalization. I think we can try to compare this with the rhythm in the Book of Changes, 4 stages. First period, let's say the big wave began. I will say this is a period in which Whitehead was seeking for logic analysis of space. So the real starting point was space. You can identify further 4 books. The began, this is a period of mathematics. According to this letter, Whitehead said that during the last 22 years, I have been engaged in a large scheme of work involving the logical scrutiny of mathematical symbolism and mathematical ideas. And then he particularly mentioned the mathematical relations between space and matter. So I will consider this to be the begin of the begin stage. And then the second flourish. This is the 1905 paper. In the same year, Einstein, this is a magical year for Einstein, right? But this paper on mathematical concept of the material world is also an important paper. Whitehead considered this to be one of the most creative paper he ever wrote. So here he also mentioned space, given a set of entities which form the field of a certain poetic, many terms, relation, and what axioms satisfied by R has as their consequences that the themes of Euclidean geometry are the expression of certain property of the field of R. So he wants to deduce Euclid geometry out of, later it's out of experience, but now it's out of some physical entities. And then the other stage, the third stage, benefit, which is the PM, which he developed a very powerful tool of logical analysis. And then he used this in this paper in 1914 to the relational theory of space, in which I would say he basically concluded the first period of investigation, and he was successful to define a point based on the logical analysis tools he developed in the PM. And then later, the second period, the London period. The London period, he read 7 papers totally to the Aristotle Society. I would consider the first 2 papers to be the beginning of the second stage. And so here we see the another smaller wave. Begin is the organization of thought, education, and the scientific, including a few papers. In the he read to the Aristotle Association. For this stage, I consider his major objective was seeking for an experience-based theory of space, time, and matter. During this period, he extended investigation from space to space-time, to include time, and he managed to solve this problem. Okay. And the beginning is this paper, Space-Time and Relativity, and then flourish, this book, and then benefit, the concept of nature, and then Steadfastness, a book about relativity. Okay. And then the Harvard period. Harvard period, we can maybe we can see he was seeking for speculative scheme of ideas that are coherent, logic, applicable, and adequate. Now he extends from physics and further into cosmology and metaphysics and their applications to almost all fields, including philosophy, literature, science, religion, and more. We can identify these books: Begin, Flourish, Benefit, and Stay Again. Okay. I'm going to be very quickly skip all this. So we can see this benefit. Okay. And then the last one, Adventure of Ideas. And more. So that will be the sort of the steadfastness of the last one. Okay, that's the first point I want to share, the reason. Okay, the reason. And then the second point is the yin-yang. I'm going to show first in the Whitehead's early writings, the first pair of yin-yang, the duality of nature. So he wrote in this an inquiry concerning the principles of natural knowledge, duality of nature, becomingness, permanence. Okay, these two. And then the second pair, events and objects. Okay. And then time and space. And then in his later writings, we can identify more yin-yangs. For example, one and many, actual entity, eternal objects, the mental pole and the physical pole of actual occasions, and then the primordial nature and the consequent nature of gods, and also God and the world. In the last chapter of Process and Reality, he wrote a beautiful description about this. And also the last but not least, he mentioned decay and the renewal of nature in the function of reason as well. And in the Book of Changes, he also talked a lot about events, relationships, process, changes. For example, events in the process in the Book of Changes was defined as Hong and Bian, which means connections, relations, and changes and becoming. Okay, which is exactly the way Whitehead defined the term event. And then creativity in the Book of Changes is also the ultimate concept. For Whitehead is the same. And the yin and the yang, Whitehead philosophy is also for yin-yang. So that's the second point. The third one, Whitehead developed categories of ultimate and 8 categories of existence, and then 27 categories of explanation, 9 categories of obligations, right? I want to focus on the first 2 categories. For example, for these 8 categories of existence, you may ask why he lists 8, not 7, not 9. Also, second question, why he listed in this order? Because given 8 concepts, you may have 8 factual, right? That many possible orders. Why this order? Okay, so the order must have a meaning and coherence. How can we, well, a list of concepts is a linear expression. Can we have a more organic expression of these concepts so that too, we can see this is really a coherent whole and the organic unity. So I think the Book of Changes can provide such a tool to better understand the relationship of Whitehead's categories. And the tool I want to use, of course, is the yin-yang. First, yin-yang, the Taiji diagram, very famous, everyone knows this. And the second diagram is the bagua. The bagua happen to be 8. So What a coincidence. And then the category of ultimate, we may map creativity, one and the many, onto this map diagram perfectly. So creativity will be the taiji, yang will be the one, and yin be the many. And according to the Book of Changes, it says that the super ultimate, the taiji, produces two modes produce four faces, and four faces produce 8 trigrams. Okay, so here, let's see. Whitehead also mentioned, among these 8 categories of existence, actual entities and eternal objects stand out with a certain extreme finality. The other types of existence have a certain intermediate character. In the Book of Changes, it says that the Qian and the Kun are the parents, and the other 6 are the children. So I find this kind of similar. So we have 2 fundamental types of existence here. Whitehead mentions this in the Book of Changes. And from taiji to 2 modes, and also Whitehead underlined 4 mean types of entities. In conclusion, there are 4 mean types of entities in the universe, of which 2 are primary types and 2 are hybrid types. The primary types are actual entities and the pure potentials, eternal objects. The hybrid types are feelings and propositions. Feelings are the real components of actual entity. So now we have 2 modes to 4 faces where we can put this map onto this diagram. So eternal objects being the Qian, and then actual entity being the Kun, and then prehensions being the Li hexagram, and then propositions being the other one, the Kan. And the further, you can actually map all 8 concepts on these 8 hexagrams. In the Book of Changes, each hexagram has a special meaning, and the meaning happens to be very similar to Whitehead's category of existence. I don't have time to expand here in detail, but I did have a paper published in the Process Study journal a few years ago to explain more on this. So now we have this diagram. Some reflection and conclusions. So the Taiji Bagua diagram offers strong evidence in favor of Whitehead's statement regarding the affinity between Chinese thought and his own philosophy of organism. As a model of organic unity, the Taiji Bagua diagram also explicitly illustrates the coherent property of the category of the ultimate and categories of existence by demonstrating the interdependence among various categories. We may also use this tool to invest other relationships between these concepts, see if we have any meaningful discoveries. Furthermore, it also serves as a tool to interpret and investigation other relationships. And then the comparison presented here indicates that Whitehead's process philosophy can serve as a helpful bridge between Western philosophy and Chinese thought, simply because the Book of Changes is the most important book in Chinese philosophy. And some more reflections, given the striking resemblance between Whitehead's category scheme and the Taiji Bagua's diagram in the Book of Change, and the fact that these 2 systems were developed separately 3,000 years apart, we cannot help but ask where this resemblance comes from. Had Whitehead ever read the Book of Changes or see the Taiji Bagua diagram? Joseph Needham has repeatedly emphasized that through Leibniz, Western thought has been informed by Chinese philosophy, and particularly in terms of the organic naturalism in the Book of Changes and the Neo-Confucianism developed in the Song Dynasty. And also we know for sure that Leibniz had seen the diagram, he studied actually in 1700 from the Jesuit missionary. And is it possible that through Leibniz, Whitehead received these ideas? depicted in the Taiji-Bagua diagram, or did he actually develop the connection independently all by himself? I feel these are interesting questions for further studies and investigations. Thank you very much. That's all.